I'm Cory Gannon. I'm the assistant director of admissions here.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
assistant director. So got a big role. See a lot of students.
Work with quite a bit every year.
Yeah, and I bet you hear a lot of dreams, ambitions. Students are going to change the world. We all have things we wanted to do, and I wonder. So when Cory was a kid, what did you want to do when you were a kid?
When I was a kid, there was a few things that I wanted to do, but the biggest thing was I wanted to go in law enforcement. I always wanted to go to the police academy, either go KSP or work in some type of FBI setting or DEA or something like that. That was always my goal whenever I first, all the way through high school, when I first got into college and everything. And, that was, I would say, my dream job would have been going to be a U.S. Marshal. That was something, I don't know, it was always something about just trying to help somebody. And, I saw some, with some family members and things like that growing up, I saw some things, and, if I could have been able to help prevent something like that for someone else, it just meant a lot. And I always had nothing but respect for the police and stuff growing up and things of that nature.
So this kind of desire from very early on to help people, but a real admiration for law enforcement.
Right.
And you said even your dream job would have been to be, was a U.S. Marshal?
Yep.
Wow, okay. So U.S. Marshal, but obviously not a Marshal right now.
Exactly.
And were there things in your life path that spurred you a different direction?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Whenever I first got to college, there's a guy I know that worked for the KSP, and I was talking to him, and I told him, I was like, I'm majoring in criminal justice and all this, and he told me, it was like, find something else so when you retire, you always have a fallback plan. And I was like, it's a pretty smart idea. So I came as a criminal justice major, so after criminal justice, I went to education. And then after I realized, I was like, I don't belong in a classroom. Went from education to social work. Went to social work, and I was like, I said, no, this takes a special type of person. And I was like, this isn't for me. Went from social work back to criminal justice, and then I was actually taking Brenda Maynard's business applications, business 215 class. And I was like, this is actually kind of interesting. And started taking the class, and I was like, I'm going to try one more business class. So I took Howard Roberts' accounting 1 class, took it, and then just business. I was like, I'm hooked on it. And graduated college, and when I graduated, I thought to myself, I was like, I'm still going to try to go apply for police academies and law enforcement jobs and things of that nature. And I said, but I'm kind of missing a bunch of deadlines. I was like, I'm going to take a year, find a job, do something. And so I started applying, and I applied for a job, and I'm going to say the company's name, but it was a part-time insurance inspector and all this, and it was for a pretty big, large company. And so done all the paperwork, and I'd send my paperwork and fall through every single time. They'd say, this doesn't look right, this doesn't look like right. So one day they called me and was like, hey, we can't go along with this process. This is taking way too long. It's taking us a month and a half to try to get this paperwork through. And I was like, well, that's fine, I guess. And so I sit there and I get on Google that same day, and I was looking for jobs, and I typed like just insurance inspector, and it popped up company's name, fraud for stealing people's identities. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I read through it, and that was the same thing. It was the same thing they were doing to me. And I was like, what in the world? I was like, what is going on? So I started getting a little nervous, and then I was like, what am I going to do for a career? So typed in on Google, I was like, jobs in Pikeville, Kentucky, and it popped up admissions counselor. And I was like, I have never in my life ever thought about doing this. I said, but it seems like a fun job. I was like, do this for a year or whatever. So I applied for the job. I think it was on a Wednesday. That Thursday I interviewed, and that Friday I got a phone call, and they offered me the job. And I was so excited, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, do this for a year, go on, apply for a law enforcement job somewhere. Done it for 2 months, realized this is what I was like, I love this. I was like, it's so enjoyable. I love working with people, love doing different things. It's like, it's not the same thing every day. I said, I'm still helping people in a different capacity than what I would be doing something else. I was like, but working with high school kids, because whenever I was a student in high school, I was first generation. If it wasn't for Mandy Stacy, God knows where I ended up at. I could have ended up somewhere else, because I had plans to go to a larger state school, and I know I wouldn't have succeeded there. So knowing that I had the option to do what she done for me made this job more appealing.
So Mandy playing a big role in
She
your life.
played a huge role.
Yeah, so I know as we think about calling, career, all that kind of stuff, it's hard to get your mind completely around it. But today, if you were to define your call today, how would you do that in a sentence?
I would say helping people would be my biggest calling. Doing what I'm doing now, I feel like it is what I'm called to do. Because I did leave this position for 6 months, and I actually left admissions for a year, but I left the university for 6 months and tried something that I thought would be something else that I would enjoy, and absolutely hated it. And I realized that, my calling that I needed to be was in higher education, help students find these different paths. Because here in Eastern Kentucky, a lot of times students get the identity that they're not smart enough to go to college, they're not wealthy enough to go to college, and things of that nature. And that's something that I take to heart, because I hear all the time from people from different places, different colleges, says, "Wow, we don't recruit Eastern Kentucky because we don't want these kids coming to our universities," and things of that nature. And it does bother me, because you got some of the brightest and most hardworking people in this area, and so I feel like my calling is to help this area and help the economy and help the students get more educated, because I was the type of student in high school that just did enough to get by. And whenever I came to college, I was like, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, just go try this out and give it a shot in the dark. And like I said, if it wasn't for Mandy coming in that one day at Pike Central, I don't know what I would have done.
Interesting. So how would you say that your job right now, maybe you already kind of shared that, but how does your job align with what you feel most passionate about?
Probably education's a big part of my life. It really is. And it was something that did not become a big part of my life until I was like 19. Because, didn't realize the importance of it and everything. And my dad, he worked in a strip job at McCoy Elkhorn Coal Company. And he'd always tell me, he said, no matter what happens in your life, your education, they can't take it away from you. And that was something that always kind of held tight to me, because, I was going to be the first person in my family to graduate from college and all this. And I was also probably the last person my family thought was going to graduate from college. And, education is something that educating people in this area is something that I'm very passionate about, just because there's a lot of people that just don't have that opportunity, or don't think about the opportunities that lie ahead of them when they're in high school. Because whenever they get into that senior year of high school, they think to themselves, like, they have to get out of Pike County. There's no opportunities and things for them here. So, just planting that seed and saying, like, hey, I thought the same thing. If it wasn't for, the University of Pikeville College at the time, then I don't know what direction my life would have ended up in. And I think education is something that I hold very, very close to me.
So obviously in your career path, and as you've been kind of seeking how to express your call, have there been obstacles? And if so, how did you navigate those?
There has been obstacles. The biggest one was whenever I got, me and my wife were about to get married, and we found out that she was pregnant, and then we realized that she was still doing her student rotations, and we were thinking about what are we going to do financially and things of that nature. So I took a leap of faith and took a job in sales and advertising, and I thought, I was like, this is something I could build my career off of and all this. And then I realized sales was not for me. It was very difficult. It was something that takes a special type of person to do. And that was probably the biggest hurdle I had to overcome, was trying to figure out what did I want to go back to higher education. If I did go back to higher education, was I going to stay in this area? Was I going to explore out to different places? And, I felt that my calling was staying here. And I feel like my calling is to stay here in Eastern Kentucky and just try to help out as much as I can. And it was just an obstacle to figure out what am I going to do? I'm 24, 25 years old, and what path is my life going to take? And then, it ended up, I came up here one day just to tell Dell and Barb congratulations graduating their masters, and they're like, there's a student success job open. And I was like, tried it out and went back in that route and came back up here just 6 months after being in sales. And sales was an obstacle for me, and it was a hard pill for me to swallow, because I don't like doing something and not doing well at it. And sales was tough. It was very tough, and I struggled with it, and it was a huge obstacle for me to overcome, to figure out what route my life needed to take.
So now, because you deal with so many students every year, so if a student was on the phone with you, or they walk into your office after an admissions visit and they say, hey man, Cory, like, I have no idea how to figure out my calling, what would be some advice you might tell them?
I tell students all the time, I'm 27, I'm still trying to figure it out. Because you honestly, people working with students now, I see students, they have in their mindset that they're going to be a doctor, they're going to be a lawyer, and all this. But a lot of times, whenever they come to college, I'm always telling them, like, be open minded. When you're open minded, you figure out what you truly want to do. And take classes, get out of your comfort zone, take classes that you're not used to. Get out, take a religion class, take a English class, take an art class. Do this stuff because once you do that, you're kind of like, that's interesting. And whenever you kind of get out of that comfort zone, you figure out what your niche really is. Because, you're basically in high school, you have a set of classes that you have to take. And when you get to college, you still have a little bit more flexibility to take different classes. If it wasn't for me just taking a couple extra business classes, then I don't know if I would have majored in business or what I would have majored in. And it was that flexibility and just being open-minded just to try out that one or two extra classes to figure out what my true calling was. And if a student just comes in, just tell them to be open-minded. When you're open-minded, you find out what truly interests you.